Hey everybody, welcome back. I hope you're all staying safe, healthy, and strong. So for those of you who follow my YouTube channel as well as my Instagram, you'll know that I've had my Tundra for about a year now, and I use it as my daily driver as well as my overland rig. Now my current situation is that I do work a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday type of job, so I'm afforded the weekends to go overlanding, and I try to make the most of it and take every opportunity as well. So in any given month, I'll probably go 2 to 3 weekends. And up front, I do want to say that these pros and cons that I'm listing in regards to overlanding in a full-size rig is based on my experiences and my preferences. Now some things that I consider pros might be cons to you, or things that you may consider pros may be cons to me. So with that said, here is my list of pros and cons while overlanding in a full-size pickup, the Toyota Tundra, for the past year. So in that year, we were able to take the Tundra to wide open deserts, to narrow trails in the mountains, to slippery trails on the snow, while still crawling in the urban streets of the Pacific Northwest in the weekdays. So for my first pro, I will say that the room and comfort by far is a huge advantage in overlanding in a full-size rig. Also, we noticed with the additional cabin space, there's definitely much more legroom, headroom. Everything is pretty much given a lot more space to kind of lounge and sprawl out. So with that, we segue into the next point, or the next pro in overlanding with the full-size rig, which is some of the storage space that we'll notice with the added interior space. So because the cabin size is bigger, we're able to stuff more gear inside the truck. So we're able to stuff more stuff in the back seat of the truck or in the back cabin of the car and still have additional room, whereas in the smaller car, in the Tacoma, we had to fill it up to the cabin roof. It definitely allows us to have more options in terms of the things we can bring additionally to enhance and allow us to enjoy our camping experience more. Also, with that said, we do have a wider truck bed space so that I am able to hold more totes in the back as well as load more things whenever we go on our trips. Now the next pro is that usually with full-size trucks, you'll get the bigger engines with more power. And with the full-size vehicles that come with the increased payload and towing capacity, it means you're able to put more items in your vehicle, in your rig, and have it sufficiently get you places without you feeling like there's like a loss of power. I will admit, when I had my Tacoma and I had it stuffed with the rooftop tent, the rack, all the gear, and a bunch of things on the truck bed loaded up, and we used to approach steep hills going upwards, I did have to hit the gas a little harder, try to stay in the lower gears a little longer. But with the full-size rig, we have it loaded up with even more things, of course, because of the extra space, and we're still able to approach steep hills going up, no issues. Now the final pro that I've noticed in this full-size rig so far is the one I got came with a larger tank. It's a 38-gallon tank. Of course, it does suck up more gas than a mid-sized truck, but because of the large fuel tank, I am still able to reach towards 500 miles of travel before needing to refill the gas. Now with that said, I'm going to segue into the con. The first con, which is of course on any full-size vehicle, a 5.7 liter V8 on a somewhat arguably prehistoric engine design, it is going to eat up the gas. My rig, the Toyota Tundra, is notorious for guzzling gas like an alcoholic pounding down a 6-pack of Bud Light. Now there are some full-size rigs out there that have certain engines, like for example the Ford's EcoBoost or certain models of diesel engines that'll get you well over 20 miles to the gallon. But in my situation, which may be different from yours, I decided to go with a Tundra and chose reliability over fuel consumption. Now some people will argue and say that if you're gonna buy a truck, you bought it knowing that fuel consumption is going to be the detriment. But with that said, with today's gas prices, a 38-gallon tank going on a full tank, the fill up will get you well over $100 in cost. So with that said, you got to think of that $100 fuel cost is going to get you around about 450 to 500 miles. So for those of you who consider the fuel economy a commodity, that is definitely a con for you. For me, it's kind of in the middle, but as I mentioned before, to me it was worth the reliability of this bomb-proof engine, because to me as an overlander, the last thing I want to do is have a component fail on me while I'm in the middle of nowhere. So the next con on this full-size rig is obviously the size. Now to me, this is a pretty big truck. I don't know if it's because I was used to driving the Tacoma for a while, but the Tundra does definitely require a lot of vehicle shoulder room when driving around, especially on trails. So the size is a thing where where it could be a bad thing or a good thing depending on who you ask. Now I know there are guys out there who really want to baby their rigs and make sure there's not even one scratch on them. So if that's the case, this is definitely a con for you, especially if you like to go overlanding and exploring on forest roads. And in the Pacific Northwest, there are definitely a lot of forest roads. Even in my Tacoma, I ran into trails where I've gotten pinstripes. And I will admit, the first couple of scratches and pinstripes did make me shudder and cringe, but now I'm used to it. There are certain ways to remedy it. I know that I can get it detailed. Eventually, I'm gonna have to either get it repainted or some people have suggested wraps. And I've come to accept, and I think a lot of people who are overlanders should accept, that their rigs used for overlanding, pinstripes are just a part of the game. Unless of course you live in an area where everything is usually fairly wide open. Maybe you're in a desert environment, you live around there, or maybe you live near the coast, you live near the beach or whatever like that, then of course that's something you don't have to worry about. But in my specific situation, that is something that just comes with the territory. But also I do want to add that because of the wider footprint of the vehicle, I feel a little more planted and connected to the ground when I am driving on trails because of the wider stance. Now another thing which I could consider a con, some people may or may not, but I do consider that on a full-size rig, of course, you are putting more money into the vehicle. The initial upfront cost of a full-size rig is usually a little more expensive than a mid-size vehicle. So because of that, the expense coming out of the pocket is a little bit greater. But as I mentioned in the beginning of the videos, I feel like the pros do outweigh the cons in this circumstance. Now in addition to that, more money put into the vehicle will also come with the rig build outs, right? The things that you add as mods. Usually because the rig is bigger, any kind of material used in order to build the modification, whether it be bumpers, skid plates, roof racks, anything like that, the manufacturers will have to use more material to produce the good. So in that case, you usually see the cost of those items be a little bit more expensive than it would on a mid-size rig. But yeah guys, this is only the beginning. I mean, I would definitely recommend, if you are interested in overlanding with a full-size rig, go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, because throughout the course of time as I do overland, once in a while I'll just talk about the rig and the pros and cons of things I noticed along the way, or I'll mention a trip, including not just the rig but even the gear that I use. And while I have you here, I do have plans to add a lift finally. It is going to be put in probably in the next month, depending on how everything is with this whole COVID-19 situation, as well as I do plan to bring the rooftop tent a little higher with a higher bed rack. So all of that will come in due time, and I want you guys to join and jump on board for those upgrades and changes on the way. But in the meantime, if you have any comments or any kind of questions you may have, please feel free to put it in the comment section down below. I love reading them and I try to get to all of them as much as I can. Sometimes I just get really busy, but I do read them, and I hope this video was very informative to you. So I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and as always, of course, be safe, take care, and I'll see you next time.